genetic modification, incredible science in the lab, it usually means this. It can be controversial. It can also be extremely beneficial.
So just like that, I might have potentially genetically modified a mosquito.
Exactly.
Both target these guys, the mosquitoes that carry two deadly diseases, malaria and dengue fever.
They just want to come and take your blood.
Both show promise they can work when standard methods do not.
And that's not enough to prevent dengue transmission.
And you can do better.
Yes.
So what are we waiting for? This is TechKnow, a show about innovations that can change lives.
Genetically modified food.
We're going to explore the intersection of hardware and humanity, and we're doing it in a unique way. This is a show about science by scientists. TechKnow investigates genetically modified mosquitoes.
Hey guys, welcome to TechKnow. I'm Phil Torres. Joining me today, Cara Santa Maria and Costa Gramatis. Now guys, what would you say if I told you we could eradicate malaria, even dengue fever? But to do so, we would have to release genetically modified mosquitoes into the world. What do you think the reaction would be?
I think the reaction, unfortunately, would be predictable. You know, I've covered a lot of stories about GM organisms for TechKnow, and there's a lot of pushback from the public. Because of that, oftentimes, this research just stays in the lab.
Yeah, but we're not talking about sweeter strawberries or faster growing salmon. We're talking about saving hundreds of thousands of human lives. And the science is there. I've seen it, I've touched it.
You know, and I've worked in jungles where these diseases are present, and they are terrible, and they are killers. So if we can end this misery, why don't we?
The female mosquito. Easily one of the greatest pests of all time. And this is one of the biggest pests of all, Aedus aegypti, the mosquito blamed for spreading diseases like dengue, chikungunya, and now Zika, the disease hitting Central South America and the Caribbean hard.
So most people think it's kind of crazy to stick your hand in a box full of mosquitoes, but these are the males. They don't actually bite. The females, on the other hand, are in this box, and if you give them a blood meal, they'll be feeding. So we're gonna keep an eye on this, because in about 30 seconds, we'll really see them start to feed. Now, to get these female mosquitoes really excited, you take the heat, the blood, and you add some carbon dioxide. So that red that we're seeing in the mosquitoes is red for a reason. That's the blood.
TechKnow has come to this laboratory about an hour from London, England, to learn about a very interesting mosquito. It's a genetically modified mosquito that's showing promise in the fight against dengue fever.
So, I gotta say, that is a lot of mosquitoes right there.
It is.
That is incredible. How many are in here?
There's 16,000 mosquitoes in there.
16,000?
Yep. 12,000 females and 4,000 males.
Derric Nimmo is Product Development Manager at Oxitec Labs. They are a biotech company that first developed genetic modifications back in 2002 that showed promise, controlling the Aedus aegypti mosquito population.
It lives in and around people's homes. It will breed around your home, and it has no need to go even further than the end of your back garden. It has everything available to it.
More cases of dengue fever confirmed on the Big Island.
Dengue fever is making headlines.
Signs were up today at Miloli'i Beach Park.
Hey guys, so we just completed night 2 at the hospital right now. We're on day 3.
YouTube stars Charles Trippy and Ali Wessenberg were among the victims of the latest outbreak in the fall of 2015.
Dengue fever has been increasing almost 30 times in the past 30 or so years. It's been increasing all around the world and it's spreading fast.
What is that from? That
doesn't seem to be slowing down. It is huge.
Dengue may make you think about remote regions of Africa or South America, but this invasive disease is becoming a deadly problem around the world. According to the World Health Organization, in 2013, there were 3 million cases across the Americas, Southeast Asia, and the Western Pacific. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control estimates there are 50 to 100 million new cases of dengue fever each year.
Dengue is composed of 4 different viruses. And what happens is somebody gets infected with dengue virus initially, and then they sort of feel ill. It's called bone break fever. Your muscles tense so much that it feels as though your bones are breaking.
Vaccines for dengue are still in development, but currently the only way to control the disease is to control what scientists call the vector, in this case, the insect spreading the disease. They do that by biting an infected person, acquiring the disease from blood, and then spreading it by biting someone else.
As scientists, we've been fighting a losing battle against mosquitoes. You know, they kill 1 person every 12 seconds.
Andy McKemmy heads up field operations for Oxitec.
All other control methods throughout mankind that we've tried to get rid of mosquitoes, this is the best?
There's a desperate need for new technology. And the types of results we're getting, over 90% suppression, are way and above what is achieved by conventional control.
What he's talking about is a program that's been tested in dengue hotspots like the Cayman Islands, Brazil, and Panama. This footage shows Oxitec mosquitoes being released in Cayman. According to the company, that release in 2010 reduced the mosquito population by 90%. But to understand what the Oxitec mosquito is, we're heading back into the lab.
Micro-injection, I'm guessing that means that is a very tiny needle.
That's right.
Is that what we're looking at right here?
That's right. That's what you can see on the right-hand side of the field of view now.
Oh my gosh. And you're controlling with this joystick
That's
here.
right. That's right.
It's like a video game with genes, in a way. So you need something that precise to stick into these eggs.
That's right. So we can actually use that needle to pierce the outside of the egg, introduce some of our DNA solution without causing any lasting damage to the egg. So these eggs will still hatch and become mosquitoes that are carrying the gene we've introduced.
So can we do an actual injection?
Absolutely. So we can move the needle using this joystick. We can pierce the end of an egg.
Oh.
Like so.
Keep pushing,
there
and
we are.
it's
and then
in.
I can deliver a little bit of DNA.
You just click a button.
That's right.
Wow.
And now we've introduced our DNA into that egg, but that egg is unharmed and can be hatched later.
Now, can I give it a shot?
Absolutely, please do. So there's your joystick.
How do you make it look so easy? Okay, let me try to. You've lined it up perfectly for me.
A fair bit of practice. There you go. You should be able to get that egg now.
They make it look easy. It isn't.
There, it's going.
That's it, that's it. And keep pushing. The needle will pierce the egg. There we
Pierced,
go. Pierced,
and now I get to click the button.
Left-hand button. There you go.
So just like that, I might have potentially genetically modified a mosquito.
Exactly.
Click of a button.
Well done.
What's happening here is basic genetic modification. These mosquito eggs are receiving a gene that will inhibit reproduction. Oxitec calls it a self-limiting gene. They tell TechKnow it produces a protein called TTAV, tetracycline repressible activator variant. When the TTAV gene is expressed, the protein ties up the cell's transcriptional machinery. That means essential genes can't be expressed properly. Offspring won't be able to develop and will simply die off before they can reproduce or transmit disease.
So out of all the millions of mosquitoes you guys have released, have you ever had adverse effects?
No. So we've released over 120 million mosquitoes, and we've had no reports of adverse effects anywhere around the world.
When TechKnow returns, questions and controversy. When Florida tries to bring the GM mosquitoes to the Keys.
Why is Oxitec and mosquito control doing this here when we don't have a problem?
tomatoes that resist a devastating bacterial disease by carrying a pepper gene, super sweet strawberries that can survive the Florida fungus, and genetically modified salmon that can grow to full size in half the time.
This is cutting-edge science.
Hell no, GMO!
But when it comes to genetic modifications, it seems every solution born in the lab creates controversy in the real world.
Key West is Florida's southernmost paradise.
This is Key West, Florida. As this tourist promotional video shows, there's no place quite like it. But the sunshine comes with a warning.
Their bites can also infect us with life-threatening diseases.
Local mosquito control departments in the Keys are in a constant fight. Mosquito-borne outbreaks have been largely controlled here. But in 2009, Key West suffered an outbreak of dengue fever.
Dengue fever spread by mosquitoes.
The Centers for Disease Control is worried.
We're now on alert.
It's been dengue-free since, and they want to keep it that way. And that's why they took a look at Oxitec's genetically modified solution. But the plan has been met with concerns since introduced in 2011.
Anything genetically modified should not be touched.
You can hear it in the voices of residents speaking at this town hall meeting in March 2012, and then again in December of 2014.
Why is Oxitec and mosquito control doing this here, now, in the Florida Keys, when we don't have a problem? If you wanted to...
Before any field test can begin, Oxitec needs government permission. As of January 2016, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration tells TechKnow their Center for Veterinary Medicine is reviewing a new drug file submitted by Oxitec. An environmental assessment is part of that application. They will not predict when this review will be completed.
Even in the Florida Keys Mosquito Control District, they have, I think it's like 3 airplanes, 3 helicopters.
You know, it seems like they have all the resources in the world, yet they can only get the population of those mosquitoes down 50%.
That's right, and that's not enough to prevent dengue transmission.
And you can do better.
Yes.
Oxitec tells TechKnow field trials in the Cayman Islands, Panama, and Brazil reduced the population by 90%. In fact, in 2015, a scientific advisory panel to the government of Brazil approved the release of the Oxitec mosquitoes to control a terrible dengue outbreak.
So far, Oxitec has released about 120 million mosquitoes for field testing. They repeatedly told us they get a success rate of about 90% reduction. Now, to verify those numbers, we talked to Danilo Carvalho at the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil, who helped analyze the data. He tells us the numbers are more like 60 to 70% reduction, not 90, and actually called into question Oxitec's methods and said their analysis was below scientific standards. Now keep in mind, 60 to 70% reduction is still better than what conventional treatments can do, but it's no 90.
To release them, it's as simple as opening the pot and letting the males fly off.
But in all those locations, they don't release females. Females bite people. They release males only and let nature do the rest.
The males do most of the work for us. They're designed through millions of years of evolution to go out and find those females.
The process begins in the Oxitec sorting room where these workers have their hands full of mosquitoes. It isn't a pretty sight.
What's the next step for them?
The next step is to get them out of the larval pupil sorter, and that's quite a simple process. You just lift it out of the water, turn it upside down, and then rinse it through.
All right.
Then Derric takes me into what they call the rearing room. That's where the mosquitoes get down to business.
We know mosquitoes drink blood, so how do you get blood in there?
We put the blood on top of the cage, like so.
Okay.
And then we have a heating element, which goes on top of the feeding plate, and that heats the blood, producing the heat like body heat, and that's what attracts the mosquitoes to the blood, and then they feed by penetrating the plastic film.
3 days later, the insects will lay eggs, genetically modified eggs.
To take the dried egg paper, like this, and we brush it through a sieve. And it's as simple as...
Oh my gosh, they're so small.
We actually have 40 million eggs.
40 million?
40 million eggs.
Oh my gosh.
Those genetically modified eggs can be shipped around the world, hatched, raised, and released. The Oxitec insect comes with something else, a marker that can help identify the GM mosquitoes from the rest of the population.
So when you look at this, you are seeing 6 mosquito pupae, and 3 of them are the Oxitec ones, 3 of them aren't. And the only way to tell is by changing the light. Do you want to give it a change?
Certainly.
Now, all of a sudden, 3 of them disappear and only 3 are actually remaining glowing. And those 3 have the Oxitec gene, and along with it, one that reflects in this light, so we know which are which.
Success is one thing, acceptance is another. That's part of the battle that still must be decided. There are other questions as well.
So the models say it stops the spread, but what has the field said?
One of the challenges of these sort of large diseases is getting sort of proper scientific evidence.
Simply put, Oxitec doesn't have enough data yet.
The mosquito populations drop. What happens to the dengue cases?
So the trials we've conducted so far are not on a large enough scale to be able to show any sort of dengue control.
Coming up...
So now I'm going to suck mosquitoes through a tube and not choke on them.
Costa Grammatis takes us into a lab that's creating a GM mosquito that could kill off malaria. Should it be released?
It's feeding time for Anopheles stevensii. This tiny mosquito has a bad reputation. It's the main culprit behind the spread of malaria in urban India. And like its brother mosquito that carries dengue, scientists are now using biotech to try to stop its deadly path. Malaria is a killer. In 2015, over 400,000 people died due to the disease, according to the World Health Organization. Mosquitoes, do they play a role in like, are they positive at all?
We don't really have any evidence that they're a key positive species in any kind of ecosystem.
The purest form of parasites
They're,
that host parasites.
Yeah, they just want to come and take your blood.
Professor Anthony James doesn't hate mosquitoes, just the diseases they carry. When he's not working in one of the world's malaria hotspots, he's here behind secured doorways at his lab at the University of California, Irvine. James and his team are behind a genetically engineered discovery that could stop the spread of malaria. If I understand correctly, you're genetically modifying mosquitoes.
That's correct. We like to call it genetic engineering, not modification, because we like to imply that there's some thought that goes into this.
You're changing their genes.
We're giving them one extra gene, in this case, or a small package of genes that do things, yeah. So they have everything that they had before, plus something extra. And that extra prevents the parasites from developing in the mosquitoes or being transmitted by the mosquitoes.
The science is complex, but the concept isn't. Malaria is a parasite spread by mosquitoes. By breeding malaria-resistant mosquitoes, you stop the spread of the disease. So you have these special genes that make it the mosquito resistant to malaria. And then the next question is like, how do you get it into the population?
That's correct.
And that's what gene drive does.
That's what gene drive does, yeah. You can imagine a truck and then a truck that has cargo. And the gene drive component is the truck, and then what the truck is carrying are our genes.
Simply put, each mosquito genetically engineered in this lab could spread the new genes into the entire mosquito population. But first, they have to get the DNA package into the insect. Is that really hard to do? Could I try doing that?
You can try it.
So we go in here, and I want to let any out.
Yes, and suck. Okay. Okay. Good.
Okay,
you
we're
have
good?
enough.
How did I do?
Good.
After the eggs are harvested, it's time for the needle. It's a totally tedious process. She's using the tiniest tweezers to pick up individual eggs that are 0.5 millimeter across and lining them up one by one. That's precision. Wow. Once the eggs are loaded with DNA, they'll grow into fully formed adults. But the question is, did the malaria-resistant DNA take? Scientists insert a color marker to make detection easier.
They're small, so we have a microscope that has fluorescence capability, has ultraviolet, and we look for them at that point. And if they glow, then we know that they have our gene.
For that, we headed through secure doorways and into the basement lab. So is this where I get to see the red-eyed mosquitoes?
Absolutely. Well, we'll be able to set them up for you.
First, the insects need to be removed from the cup of water they call home. Now we got these guys, and we're gonna take them over the microscope.
Absolutely.
And put them in there.
We get this nice light, and you see through there?
Whoa. It looks just like how when you take a photo of someone, you get that red eye effect. Those are the red eyes I'm seeing in here. It's really incredible. And so bright. Fluorescent glowing eyes help us determine if a mosquito is genetically engineered or not, and how many are making their way into the general population. The key component for ensuring these genes make it into the general population is the gene drive. It's another discovery that's promising to revolutionize the biotech industry. It's called the CRISPR-Cas9 system. So in every mosquito, there are two
so we have two
the mom and dad's DNA.
So we figured out a way to get our gene into dad's DNA.
Yeah.
We cut dad's DNA, all right, and then we give a whole bunch of copies of what we want to get in there. And when this tries to fix itself, you know, instead of just trying to stick itself together, it says, okay, I'll use, oh, this looks like me out here, and we fooled it.
When it comes to keeping genetically engineered mosquitoes segregated, James showed us how strict the rules are around here. None of these new mosquitoes are taking flight anytime soon.
We have two very simple protocols. For the larvae, we use a microwave, and we give them just a little bit of a burst on the microwave. We don't want any releases into the wild, and one of the ways to do that is to make sure that no living material of this type gets out. This can't get into the local water supplies or anything like that. If we put it in the trash, they're dead at this point.
Rest in peace.
Absolutely, thank you.
Tony is an incredible guy. I mean, he's been doing this research for 20 years, and I asked him, is there a big paycheck in the end for you? Why are you doing this? And he's like, oh, no. I'm giving this away. His motivation is to leave a lasting impact to create a better world for his sons and daughters.
You know, and for me, I often wonder, what is the public perception going to be to somebody like that who's giving it away for free versus a company like Oxitec, which is a company, you know, they're trying to make a profit, trying to make a living using science.
Yes, we're talking about eradicating a terrible disease, actually a terrible class of diseases, but there is kind of a genie out of the bottle mentality with this type of gene drive, right? As soon as you make the decision to release these mosquitoes into the environment, what's gonna happen is gonna happen, and there's no going back.
Yeah, and you know, the public seems to be afraid of GM organisms because they don't know a lot about them.
They have fascinating mitigation strategies to keep on top of how these mosquitoes are going in different places. So like they're starting on an island. They're gonna start in a really remote place and they're gonna see what happens there. And then once we have a much better understanding of how these animals impact the environment, we can take it to other places.
But come on, we've all seen Jurassic Park,
I mean,
right?
yeah.
Life
Like
finds a way.
They never left the island.
Keep in mind, this mosquito has spread all over the world. Usually it's piggybacking on humans, but still, you know, an island is a relatively safe place. These issues raise a ton of questions, which we here at TechKnow, we're gonna stay on top of. That's it for this episode. See you next time.
Dive deep into these stories and go behind the scenes at aljazeera.com/techknow. Follow our expert contributors on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Google+, and more.